Saving Cupid for the sake of love. Cupid stood there, angry. He stood on his cloud kingdom, his home. From there he could enter every single universe, reality and dimension and spread love through all. But love was countered by hatred. And no matter who Cupid struck with his heart arrows, no matter who he nurtured, no matter how much love he spread throughout the multiverse, Cupid stood there angry, rage boiling in his soul. Cupid stood there on his cloud when suddenly something whisked past him. Something not natural. Something not human. Or otherwise, not even physical. "Hello, Cupid," said a voice. "Who are you?" Cupid asked. "Someone who wants to help you enact revenge on all those who don't deserve your love," the voice replied. "Why would I help you? Why would you even help me?" Cupid snapped. "Because I see you hurting, and I am somewhat of a doctor. I want to cure you," the voice said. "And what does that look like exactly?" Cupid sighed. "I'll give you the power. You use it to ruin those who abused your love," the voice sneered. Cupid knew he should be helping those who chose love, those who starting new romances, those who are struggling with their own relationships, new mothers and new fathers, bickering siblings, everybody. But his rage was more. This time round, it was stronger. "Fine," Cupid muttered. Cupid turned around and was face to face with a demonic red entity with black hollow eyes and a big wide grin. The entity placed its claw-like hand on Cupid, and his chin-like body morphed. His white tunic turned black, his wings also became black and grey, his white skin became a dark ash colour, and his wooden oak bow became black and red with demonic feathers. The Cupid's pink eyes turned pure black. "Time for some love," Cupid growled with a slight grin. In Universe 19, Jason and Haylin sat at a park bench, both of them with a to-go cup of coffee in hand. "When was the last time we just sat here and did absolutely nothing?" Haylin asked. Jason let out a little chuckle.
"It sure has been a while with the banker and Trini's alternate daughter from hell,"
Jason replied. "That's a bit harsh," Haylin sniped.
"What? I was joking,"
Jason blurted. "Yeah, well, that wasn't funny," Haylin muttered. She stood up and stormed off. Jason let out a sigh and then decided to chase after her.
Babe, would you slow down?"
Jason called out. Haylin stopped, then spun around to face Jason. "You know what, Jason? Sometimes you don't even think. You don't use your big head of yours, and sometimes you're insensitive. Sometimes you can be a total jerk, you know that?" Haylin roared at him.
"Whoa, time out, Dragonfly. What the hell? Where did this sudden burst of anger come from?"
Jason said softly. Haylin's enraged face softened. She took a deep breath in. "I'm sorry, I do not know what that was," Haylin said sadly. Suddenly there was a strange warping noise, and before the couple a blue police box appeared. The door swung open and a man stepped out.
"Come on, you two, let's go. We haven't got all day,"
the man bellowed.
"And you are?"
Jason asked sternly. He gripped onto his ultra morpher, ready to morph just in case.
"Cupid has gone AWOL, and you have just felt the effects of his newfound power and mission to destroy love as we know it,"
the man told them. "I'm sorry, what? Cupid, as in the baby with the bow and arrow?" Haylin asked.
"More like young teenagers, but yes. Now can we please get a move on? We have others to collect,"
the doctor said with a rush. Jason and Haylin looked at each other dumbfounded, then they both silently agreed to go with the odd-acting fellow. They both entered the police box, which was massive on the inside.
"This thing is incredible,"
Jason gasped.
Yes, it's massive on the inside. And on the outside is a plain-looking police box. It's called the TARDIS. TARDIS stands for time and relative dimension in space. And right now, I do not have time to explain all the timey-wimey stuff it can do. Just keep those mouths shut whilst I concentrate.
The doctor sniped. Ben Tennyson sat there with his partner Rook and his cousin Gwen. He sat there on a bench with his Mr. Smoothie in hand, and he took a long drink. Then he sat there with a satisfied sigh. I appreciate the days we can just chill out, Ben sighed. You do not wish to, how do you humans say it? Ah, yes, jinx us, do you? Rook asked. Jinx? Rook, are you still reading the dictionary? Ben mocked. Suddenly a car sped past them with the purple masked crew aiming their guns and blasting the city buildings. Ben! Gwen moaned. Oh, cousin, we're in our 30s and you're still moaning at me. Damn, chill out, Ben said. He then stood up and gripped his 10k belt buckle. I am Ben 10,000 after all. Ben chuckled. Then he crossed his wrists. Both of his gauntlets of the bioomnitrix connected. Echo chill! Ben called out. In a flash of green light, Ben transformed into the fusion of two of its alien species, which he dubbed Big Chill and Echo Echo. Echo Chill took flight and flew after the car. He then copied himself, splitting off into 3 different versions. Each one let out a sonic scream, the sonic waves hitting the car, freezing it, encasing it in ice, freezing the car into a solid block. The 3 clones became one and he landed. His wings became its cloak. Then a flash of green, he reverted back to Ben. Gwen came running up to him. I told you needed to chill out. I had this, Ben grinned. Oh, cousin, we're in our 30s, and you're still petty, and there's no need for that, Gwen snapped, pointing at the block of ice. What, I got them, didn't I? Ben moaned. Suddenly there was a warping sound, and a police box appeared before them. The door opened, and a strange fella stepped out.
Ah, yes, Ben Tennyson and sweet Gwen. I mean, it's been years since our last encounter. Saying that, I'm in a different body now, and looking at you, you are now legendary. Ben 10,000. Good for you.
The man chuckled. Oh, damn. Doc, what are you doing here? Ben asked.
The world is at stake. Every world is at stake. And most of all, love is at stake.
The doctor told them. What do you mean love is at stake? Gwen asked him.
Get in and we can explain.
A voice called out. Ben and Gwen looked past the doctor and saw another duo in the doorway of the police box. Okay, fine, but I'm not using an upgrade on this thing again, Ben moaned. All 5 of them walked into the police box and the door closed as the police box disappeared. Faith walked around the streets, alone. She could feel the 2 individuals stalking her, feel their eyes glued to her, feel them hunting her. She stopped in the middle of an alleyway. The rain started falling. She took a deep sigh in and turned around to see the 2 men stood before her. Hey, pretty lady, shouldn't be all out here by yourself, one hissed. Trust me, I can handle my own, Faith hissed. Want some company? The other one asked. Faith pulled out a steak and twiddled it between her hands. How about you drop the facade and show me those pearly whites of yours? Faith suggested. Both of the men looked at each other, then grinned, their faces more revealing their vampire nature. They both ran at her. Faith threw a punch and knocked one vampire clean off his feet. The other vampire tried to wrap her arms around her. She threw her foot back and kicked the vampire away. The first one climbed to his feet and jumped at Faith. She jabbed her stake out and hit him in the heart. The vampire exploded into dust. Then she rolled forward and punched the second one in the stomach. She spun around and swept her foot underneath him, tripping him over. Then she flipped over him as she landed. She plummeled her stake into his heart, turning him into dust as well. She stood up and placed her stake in her waistline. The sound of clapping echoed throughout the alleyway. She turned around and saw 5 people stood in front of a police box that had magically appeared. Who on earth are you guys? Faith asked. We're about to save the world. Or worlds, one guy chirped.
You are needed,
another one said to her.
Faith, one of the Slayers. I am in need of your assistance, or you can stand in the rain and get more wet.
The leading man said. Faith realised that her clothes and hair were now soaked. She looked around and nodded. Everyone walked into the police box, the door closed, and the police box disappeared. Everyone stood around and Faith was introduced to everybody. There was Jason and Haylin, two Ultra Rangers, Ben and Gwen. One had the ability to turn into aliens and one was a sorceress, and the leader of the mixed match team was someone who called himself the Doctor.
Listen up, folks. Love is at stake here. Cupid himself has been affected by some greater evil. He is now using his powers to affect people, making them lash out, causing people to break out in violent rage. Jason and Haylin were almost a target. Luckily, Jason defused the situation. Now I can get us into Cupid's home dimension, a small pocket, and we need to break him out of this hole this higher power has on him.
The Doctor explained. How do we do that? A voice said behind them. Everyone turned around to see a purple hero wearing a bulletproof vest with a purple spider spray painted on it hanging upside down on the web.
Where did you come from?
Jason asked. Dude, I got here before you did, the hero chuckled.
Everyone, this is Logan. In his universe, he is known as Spider-Man.
The Doctor stated. Spider-Man jumped off his web and landed in front of everyone, waving at them awkwardly.
To answer your question, we use violence. We smack this new devil off the entity of love's shoulders.
The Doctor stated. The Doctor pressed several buttons and turned a few knobs. He pulled a couple of levers and the console, and then the police box, which the Doctor told everyone was called the TARDIS, hummed to life, and the TARDIS left the alleyway and headed towards Cupid. The TARDIS appeared in the land of clouds. Everyone walked out of the TARDIS and looked up to the sky. The sky was filled of hexagons, each one a window to another universe. Couples, siblings, parents and children, friends all arguing with each other could be seen, and some of them breaking out into violent rages.
Cupid has already begun his revenge on the multiverse. We must act fast.
The Doctor stated with a sense of urgency. You pathetic Doctor trying to save me, a voice bellowed. Everyone looked up and saw a black cloud sparking with red lightning floating down. Riding it was Cupid. The young teenage-looking being was grey in colour with a black outfit and a bow in hand.
I will save you, Cupid. I must. But fighting, I will not. I'm not allowed to mess with the beings that hold the multiverse together. But I can recruit a ragtag team that are more than capable of smacking you around.
The Doctor taunted. Please, you cannot get past my new friends, Cupid hissed. He then formed an arrow out of nothing. He drew it, he aimed high and shot the arrow exploded, and statues appeared. Living statues, all of them 6 foot, grey with glowing cracks throughout their bodies, covered in metal plates resembling armour. Some of them dropped into fighting stances, and some of them wielded Greek-like swords.
Okay, so we are stood on a cloud fighting an army belonging to Cupid, who is evil and wants to ruin the multiverse by spreading hate, which will break the balance, and I am about to fight with an alien, a slayer, and a spider-themed hero. Yep, life can't get much more crazy.
Jason muttered to himself.
I believe some of you have some things to yell, some flashy transitions to do.
The Doctor noted as he took several steps back closer towards the TARDIS, allowing his team to take the forefront.
I don't know whether to feel offended or not,
Jason moaned. Come on, let's get on with this, Ben cheered. Both Jason and Haylin pulled out their Ultramorphers and helped them out.
Red Dragon!
Jason yelled out. Green Leviathan! Haylin yelled out. The morphing grid filled them as a flash of light wrapped around them, morphing them into the red and green Ultra Rangers. Ben crossed his arms, his bioomnitrated gauntlets crossing each other. Faster! Ben called out, and in a flash of green light he transformed into the hybrid alien made of 2 aliens Ben had dubbed Fast Track and Lodestar. Gwen held up her hands and her eyes glowed pink. Faith flexed her wrists and a blade popped out from the top of her wrist. Thank you, Wesley. Faith muttered. Spider-Man checked his web shooters and dropped into his fighting stance. The army of statues ran at the ragtag team. The Red Ultra Ranger jumped up and kicked one of the statues back. He then blocked 2 incoming sword strikes coming from both sides. He threw his leg out to his left, kicking one of the statues. Then he grabbed the blade of the second attacker. He yanked the sword out of his hand and threw it to the ground. He then threw several punches multiple times, hitting its chest and head. It fell to the ground and crumbled to pieces. The Green Ultra Ranger summoned her Ultra Dagger and slashed the statue twice. She then spun around and kicked it. The statue shattered into pieces. She rolled forward and threw her Ultra Dagger. It hit a statue in the chest. She ran at it as it staggered backwards and kicked the dagger further into it as it shattered. Gwen made 2 energy discs and threw them both. One cut a statue's head off, whilst the other one cut one clean in half. She then muttered a spell and a small twister formed, throwing several of them around the dark cloud platform. Fast Star blurred around the place, smacking a few of the statues closer together. Then he came to a halt. He held out both his pincers like hands, and he sent out his magnetic pulse waves and lifted the statues up into the air, crushing them together. Faith swung her blade, slicing one of the statues together. She then ran up one of them, up its body, and wrapped her legs around its head. She then threw her body weight back, throwing the statue off its feet. Both of them came crashing down onto the ground. She then stabbed the statue with her blade, penetrating its head. Spider-Man shot 2 webs and disarmed 2 of the statues. He shot another web and pulled himself forward, kicking one of the statues. It broke into pieces. He then webbed up the pieces of broken statue and swung it around, smashing it into another statue, making sure the statue broke as well. The team dealt with Cupid's army pretty quickly. Then they all grouped up and surrounded the entity of love. Gwen wrapped Cupid in a bubble. Cupid then let out an almighty cackle as he placed his newly formed arrow against the bubble, and the tip absorbed the energy flowing through the arrow. Now free, he aimed the energy-fueled arrow and fired it at Gwen. She formed a wall of pink energy, but the arrow broke through it and hit Gwen, exploding on impact, throwing her off her feet. "Ah! Be careful!" Fast Star screamed out. Then in a flash of green, he shifted form. "Diamond Monkey!" he screamed out. His new form was a fusion of 2 aliens Ben had dubbed Diamond Head and Spider Monkey. Diamond Monkey aimed his tail and shot out several crystal shards at Cupid. Cupid moved swiftly, dodging each shard. Another arrow formed and he shot it. Diamond Monkey caught the arrow and grinned. Then the arrow exploded in a pocket-sized echo pulse. The Diamond Monkey was thrown backwards and deformed back into Ben. Faith ran in and punched Cupid square off in the face. "Ah yes, a slayer. Of course the doctor brings me one of you," Cupid hissed. He grabbed Faith by the neck and lifted her into the air. The Green Ultra Ranger charged in. Cupid threw Faith and she crashed into the Green Ultra Ranger. Spider-Man jumped in and shot several web shots at Cupid. Cupid dodged each shot, then he formed another arrow. He aimed it and shot it at Spider-Man. Spider-Man shot a web that hit the arrow, and a surge of black energy travelled through the web from the arrow and into Spider-Man's web shooter. His web shooter exploded and Spider-Man was thrown off his feet. The Red Ultra Ranger summoned his Ultra Sword. He ran in and slashed Cupid. Cupid dodged each strike except from one, which caught Cupid's cheek. A single drop of blood dripping down his cheek, Cupid wiped it off with his 2 fingers. "Well done. Jason, right?" Cupid said with a malicious grin. The Red Ultra Ranger didn't respond. He just thrust his sword out, but Cupid jumped back and he formed 3 more arrows which floated beside him. He grabbed one and shot the Red Ultra Ranger. Then he grabbed the second one and shot the Green Ultra Ranger as she climbed to her feet. He grabbed the third one and shot Ben. Both Ultra Rangers demorphed. "There you go. Now everyone is powerless and you can watch me at work," Cupid grinned. He turned away from the heroes and looked up at the sky, the view of the multiverse above him. The Doctor pulled out a flare gun and loaded it with a white flare with a red M painted on the side. He then aimed the gun up and fired it. The flare shot into the air with a pure white light emanating off of it.
"Gonna need your help now, boys,"
the Doctor muttered. Gwen and Faith tried to stand, but they both felt too weak to move. It felt like their energy was being drained. Suddenly, there was a portal that opened, and 2 young men walked out. One had black hair, a black jacket, and a sword and gun holstered to his body. The other had red spiky hair and piercing blue eyes.
"I give you Sparks and Eric,"
the Doctor muttered with a grin. "Remember, we are here as backup, not the front runners. They have to beat Cupid themselves," Spark said.
"Yeah, I get it. Let's just wrap this up."
Eric sighed. Cupid turned around and faced the duo. "Newcomers! Interesting. The red-haired one. I can sense your multiversal power. Cupid grinned.
Trust me, he won't need it to smack the snot out of you, Cupid.
Eric sneered. Cupid dropped his bow and bolted at the two. Eric drew his gun and started firing it. Each shot hit Cupid, blood splattering across the ground. Sparks then stepped forward and swung his fist, knocking him back. Eric drew his sword and jumped up and slashed Cupid several times. Then he darted out of the way as Sparks threw out his hands and a blast of electricity exploded from his palm and hit Cupid, throwing him back as he crashed into one of the columns, which tumbled on top of him. Sparks then walked back up to Eric. Hold your sword up, Sparks ordered.
What? Not the time to admire my sword, dude.
Eric snapped sarcastically. Hey, you wanted to join the mysteries, but you didn't want the fancy upgrades. Now give me your sword. Sparks snapped back. Eric rolled his eyes with a cocky grin, then held up his blade. Sparks' eyes turned white and he ran his fingers over Eric's blade. The blade started glowing pure white. Hit Cupid. Gotta be the shoulder. Make sure you penetrate it too. It will relinquish our friend's grip on Cupid over there. Allow our friends here to beat him, Sparks explained.
What are you going to do?
Eric asked him. I'm going to do my job and sort out Cupid's mess real quick, Sparks said. Then he took flight and flew higher into the sky, and Eric shook his head.
Hey Eric, why not join me on a wild goose chase? What are we chasing, you ask? Well, a being who is hell-bent on wrecking the entire multiverse. Yes, it will be dangerous, but you're the chosen one. Should have bitten him when I had the chance.
Eric muttered to himself in a sarcastic tone. His hair turned white, his fangs grew out, and his wings extended out. Then he flew at Cupid, who had removed the big stone column off of himself. Eric flew over to Cupid, and Cupid's wings formed, and he took flight as well. Both of them flew higher into the sky. Eric swinging his sword at him, he pulled out his gun and fired several bullets, but the bullets ripped through Cupid's wings. Cupid fell down, and Eric caught him just in time.
Happy Valentine's Day, you dumb low freak.
Eric barked. He pulled him closer and stabbed Cupid in the shoulder. The white boon on his blade transferred into Cupid. Then Eric kicked Cupid to the ground. Sparks floated before the multiverse windows. His eyes started to glow pure white, and he waved his hand before the windows. A veil of white energy escaped his palm. Then one by one, Cupid's hateful revenge crusade attempts reverted back, leaving everyone that was cursed slightly drained due to the hatred spell. Sparks then flew down to the ground and joined Eric. Admit it, come on, you're having a little bit of fun, Sparks said with a grin.
Okay, I will admit, when you asked me to come along, I never thought I would get to smack around Cupid.
Eric chuckled. Sparks and Eric looked around at the fallen heroes. Sparks muttered something into his hand, then released a little white wisp of light. The white wisp of light hit each one of the fallen heroes. Sparks and Eric both waved their hands at the Doctor, who stood there with a stern look on his face as he leant against the TARDIS. Then Sparks held out his hand and a portal opened. Eric and Sparks then left Cupid's dimension, and the portal closed behind them.
Do you ever wonder what would happen if
you give a dad a podcast.
Hello, all my beautiful people.
Hey, Mom, I'm not going to college like we planned. I'm going to take a couple years off. I just gave all my college money to this professional wrestling promoter, and I'm going to be a big superstar one day.
I'm a human animal chiropractor.
I wasn't about to call you dad, so.
I'm what you call a nerd fan.
And the Monos Chronicles, the new web series that I'm working on.
We inadvertently made that kid cry. We didn't mean to.
I mean,
people get really mad at those videos for some reason. Like it triggers certain people. Yeah.
First tryout, made the team, made starting position. I was right guard for a little while.
Hey Jared, that swerve I was going to tell you about, here it is.
It's going to be from a nerdy dad's point of view.
You're starstruck. It's not a big deal, man.
I am starstruck.
I made a really good career out of being able to bump, sell, and I had a punch me face.
That's why they call it If You Give a Dad a Podcast.
Exactly. Available everywhere podcasts are found.
Cupid stood and roared out loud. Jason, Halen, Spider-Man, Ben, Gwen and Faith all stood and regrouped. The Doctor walked up to them.
Okay, what just happened and who were those two?
Jason asked.
Back up, just in case. They deal with the multiverse effects. Anyway, we must stop Cupid. At this moment, this is our chance.
The Doctor stated. Why are we here, man? Like, come on. Faith groaned.
Guess I should spell it out. Okay, you guys, each one of you, symbolizes a form of love. Jason and Halen are the romance. Ben and Gwen are the family bond. Spider-Man is currently waiting for his mother to wake from a coma, being the symbol of love for those who bring us into the world and care for us as we mature. Then we have Faith, the woman who hates herself more than anyone who could ever hate herself. She needs to learn to love herself. She symbolizes self-love. You were chosen for a reason.
The Doctor explained to them.
Oh, damn, great. Mushy stuff. Fine, we get it. We were chosen for this. Let us get this over with.
Jason said with an eye roll. Oh, babe, look at you, the symbol of love. Halen teased. Get out of my home! Cupid roared behind them. The team turned around and saw Cupid stood there looking weaker than before, standing with the loss of power and triumph. Jason and Halen held out their morphers and morphed one more time into the red and green Ultra Rangers. Ben stood there and raised one of his gauntlets of the Biomatrix to his mouth and called out Big Chill. In a flash of green light, he changed into Big Chill. Cupid stood flexing his wings. He then decided to fly at the heroes. Faith stepped forward and swung her fist, punching Cupid in the face, using all her Slayer strength to smack him back. Spider-Man jumped up and webbed 2 columns and pulled them in. He then used his strength and swung them around and threw them at Cupid. Both the columns crashed on the entity of love, breaking on impact. Gwen floated into the air and muttered a spell. 8 balls of pink light appeared around her, and she threw out her hands, and each one of them flew at Cupid, hitting him directly. Cupid then roared out and he summoned a bow and shot several arrows out. Gwen landed and made a pink mana wall. The arrows hit the wall. Both Ultra Rangers then ran in. Red Ultra Ranger slashed Cupid several times with his Ultra Sword, slashing his stomach and then chest. Then he slashed down, striking Cupid. The Green Ultra Ranger jumped over the Red Ultra Ranger as her Ultra Dagger started to glow. She landed in front of Cupid and slashed him. The green lightning sparked off the impact. Cupid was sent flying back and crashed onto the ground. Big Chill flew in and Cupid climbed to one knee and threw out several arrowheads at Big Chill. He became intangible, allowing the arrowheads to phase right through him. Then Big Chill let out a stream of icy cold breath from his mouth, and Cupid was hit and encased in a block of ice, only his hands and head free. Faith ran in and swung both fists one after the other, smacking Cupid in the face. Then Spider-Man shot 2 webs and slungshot himself as he dove at Cupid. He double kicked him, the ice shattering due to the impact, and Cupid landed on the ground. He lay there crying. He curled up into the ball, his eyes now glistening with tears, as they strolled down his cheek. Then the Doctor ran up to him and pulled out a strange device. He plugged the sonic screwdriver into it and aimed at Cupid. There was a quick flash, and Cupid's clothes returned to normal. His skin lost its grey tinge, and Cupid stood there and wiped away his tears. Thank you, all of you. It feels like a fog has lifted, Cupid mumbled. Big Chill turned back to Ben, and both Ultra Rangers demorphed.
Are we good?
Jason asked. We are. Thank you, Jason Lee Scott, Cupid replied. How did you know his name? Halen asked. Please, my job is to fuel love, to watch it grow and flourish and die. You're one of my favourite couples. In most universes, actually, Cupid told her with a smile. So I can add Cupid to the list of strange people I've punched. Okay, Spider-Man shrugged. I'm glad you are all here. All of you. Thank you, Cupid sighed.
Right, Cupid, you have some duties to attend to, and I must get those fine young heroes back to their homes.
The Doctor told them. They all said their goodbyes to Cupid, who promised to not let the evil and hating entity enforce his evil ways upon him again. And just like that, everyone walked into the TARDIS, and one by one, the Doctor got everyone back home to their own universes. Jason and Halen went back to their date. They both apologised for their minor lovers spat beforehand, and Jason promised he would be more considerate. Spider-Man got out of his hero suit, and Logan sat with his mother, and he told the unconscious news reporter the story of the lifetime. Faith sat there staring at her phone. Angel's number on screen. She pressed the call button and held the phone to her ears. Ben and Gwen returned to the plumber's headquarters and met up with Rook. Ben apologised for being so egotistical beforehand, and Gwen punched him in the arm. Then they told Rook all about their adventure. Cupid sat there and watched those who chose to love in any form and celebrated Valentine's Day. As for the Doctor, he continued his search for the evil entity who was hell-bent on destroying the multiverse in any way necessary. Sparks and Eric stood in the White Plane, a safe haven for the mysteries.
Okay, so now what? We just wait for the doctor guy to send us a signal?
Eric asked. Yep, that's pretty much it, Spark sighed.
It would help if you told me what we're up against.
Eric snapped as he paced back and forth. There's this man who calls himself Dr. Dead. He's popped up a few times in different universes, but there's one who is multiversal, one who feeds on pure negativity. He's building up power to break free. That's why Cupid was a target, and why Cupid only saw a red entity-looking thing. He's not exactly free yet. We don't know, or shall I say, I can't find out who his next target is, but we will just wait. That's why the Doctor's collecting some heroes and going out, stopping the entity, because I can't actually do it. And sometimes you need help, Sparks told him.
Okay, and we can trust this guy?
Eric asked. When the last time the Doctor died and was regenerated again into a new cycle, we imbued him with some knowledge. Not all of it, he don't know about everything. He just knows about me and you and what we can do. He knows we're stopping this version of Dr. Dead at least, Sparks explained.
Okay, question. What happens if we can't stop this freak?
Eric asked. That is a question I do not want the answer to, Sparks said with a mild tone. Sparks and Eric both stood there in the White Plane waiting for the Doctor's next course of action. For the next time he'd have to gather another team of heroes to save the multiverse, but most importantly, they waited for the most powerful version of Dr. Dead to strike again.
What you have just listened to is a product created by the Three Ranger Bros Studio.
Hosted by three cosplaying fathers who
happen to be massive geeks of all sorts of fandoms.
They are Mark, the Red Cornish Ranger,
Cosplay Dude 637,
and Ty Tiger.
The studio covers different types of YouTube videos, TikToks, podcasts, and live streams.
If you wish to find out who cosplays who, the YouTube channel, the TikTok accounts, and the podcasts, and all of the other social media platforms,
please go to the 3rangerbrostudios.com.